Do animals have a sixth sense? Nature's mysterious senses. Imagine a quiet evening. The sky is cloudless, the air is still. The world seems to have frozen in silence. Suddenly dogs start barking, birds fly out of their nests, cats run away in panic, and horses struggle in their stables. A moment later the earth trembles, buildings collapse, and people have no idea what was coming. But they knew. The animals. Is it possible that our four-legged companions and wild creatures possess an ability that we humans have long since lost? A sixth sense? Instinct? Or perhaps contact with something we cannot yet understand? In many parts of the world, people tell stories of dogs that can sense illness, cats that appear at death, or birds that change course before disasters. Official science often explains it in more down-to-earth terms. Better hearing, heightened senses, response to pressure changes, electromagnetic fields. But is that enough to explain all the cases? In this episode, we take you on a journey through facts, legends, testimonies, and experiments. We'll discover stories that surprise even the most skeptical researchers. We'll see what we really know about animal premonition and what still remains a mystery. Sit comfortably, quiet your mind, open yourselves to the unknown. Because perhaps the truth is hidden where we least look for it, in the eyes of our dog, the gaze of a bird, or the behavior of a flock just before a storm. Premonition of disaster, animals and earthquakes and tsunamis. In December 2004, on the second day of Christmas, the world held its breath. A gigantic earthquake in the Indian Ocean triggered a massive tsunami that hit the coasts of Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and India. Waves as high as houses washed away entire towns, taking the lives of over 200,000 people. In this sea of human tragedy, one thing remains incredibly intriguing. How is it possible that so few animals died? In Sri Lanka's Yala National Park, elephants were the first to react. Minutes before the tsunami hit, they began to act restless, roaring, stamping, and breaking free from their ropes to rush inland. Birds abandoned trees, and wild animals, who usually kept their distance from humans, ran in the same direction, into the hills. Guides and sanctuary caretakers say they've never seen such collective panic among animals. Similar phenomena occurred 7 years later, in March 2011 in Japan, before the 9-magnitude earthquake that triggered another devastating tsunami. Pet owners from the Tohoku region reported en masse that their dogs and cats were restless, nervously pacing around the house, whining, meowing, refusing to eat. Fish in aquariums swam chaotically, birds changed direction of flight. In one account, an elderly man said that his dog had started barking loudly and struggling to get to the door a dozen or so minutes before the first tremors. He listened to him. He left the house. The building collapsed when he was already in the garden. Is it a coincidence? Science suggests that animals can detect microvibrations, or changes in the electromagnetic field, that precede an earthquake. Other hypotheses include ultrasound emitted by cracking rocks. But neither theory fully explains why the animal's responses can be so precise and synchronized. Some cultures, such as the ancient Chinese, believed that observing animals could warn of impending disasters. For centuries, farmers and herders were guided by the behavior of cattle and birds. So was what now sounds like folk superstition once practical knowledge, based on observing the laws of nature that we now ignore? Perhaps there is something more hidden in these instinctive responses, something that we are only just beginning to understand. Dogs and cats. Mysterious behavior of quadrupeds. In many cultures, dogs and cats have always been considered special creatures. Their presence in homes is not limited to companionship. They are watchful observers, guardians of sleep, often reacting to something that humans do not notice. But is it possible that they sense more than we do? In the United States, there was a well-known case of a golden retriever named Max, who began to behave restlessly in the home of his owner, an elderly man with a heart condition. Max followed his owner around, refused to eat, and growled when the man tried to fall asleep. Eventually, he began to bark incessantly. The family, concerned about his behavior, called an ambulance. The man had a heart attack. He was saved literally at the last minute. The doctors agreed. If not for the dog's reaction, he would not have survived. No less enigmatic are the stories of cats, such as the famous Oscar from a hospice in Rhode Island. For years, this unassuming house cat entered the rooms of patients who died on the same day. He never made a mistake. Over time, the staff interpreted his presence as a signal to notify the patient's family. Some believe that Oscar sensed changes in the body's biochemistry, but is that enough to explain his infallible intuition? Animals sometimes behave as if they see something that human senses miss. They stare fixedly at a blank wall, bristle, growl, or hiss at an invisible point in space. Some claim that after the death of a loved one, their cat or dog behaved differently, as if they still felt the presence of the deceased. Is this evidence of contact with the invisible world, or perhaps a manifestation of deep attachment? Pets spend every day with us. They know our rhythm, moods, smells. Unlike people, they do not analyze, do not rationalize. They react. And it is in this simplicity that the power of their perception lies. Is what we call the sixth sense in dogs and cats simply a natural part of their consciousness? And if so, who is really more developed here, us or them? Birds, horses, and cattle, invisible synchronization. In the world of herd animals, phenomena often occur that seem incomprehensible from a human perspective. When hundreds of birds suddenly change direction in flight, horses start to nervously tap their hooves on the ground, and a herd of cows stops grazing and freezes. The question arises, what did they sense? In November 2021, a video from China circulated in the media, showing hundreds of sheep walking in a circle for several days, for no apparent reason. The video caused global astonishment. Some said it was a neurological disease, others that it was the effect of a magnetic field. However, farmers from the region kept saying that animals know something. And indeed, 2 days after the phenomenon ended, a small earthquake occurred in the nearby area. In New Zealand, seabirds nesting on cliffs had been observed for years. It often happens that a day or two before a cyclone approaches, the birds abandon their eggs and fly away. Although the weather has not yet worsened, the birds seem to feel the approaching storm. This behavior is so regular that local fishermen consider it one of the warnings of bad weather. Horses are exceptionally sensitive animals, sensitive to smells, sounds, and human emotions. Many stories of their owners highlight a recurring pattern. The animal suddenly refuses to enter a building or stable, which soon turns out to be a place of hidden danger. Sometimes a fire, sometimes a collapse of the structure, and sometimes the silent, unexpected death of another horse. In Ireland, one farmer noticed that his horses consistently avoided one of the stables, even though at first glance it was completely safe and used every day. A few weeks later, the roof of the building collapsed due to a previously invisible structural defect. As if sensing the danger, the animals did not want to approach the place that would soon become a trap. A herd of cows can also act as one organism. A change in body position, the direction of their gaze, a collective unease can be a signal that something in the environment has changed. In some villages, farmers claim that they can predict a storm more quickly by the behavior of their cows than by the weather forecast. What do all these cases have in common? Coordination, instinct, or maybe something more? A collective consciousness that reacts to what remains invisible to us? Experiments and scientific research. Although the topic of the sixth sense in animals seems mysterious, scientists have been trying to approach it rationally for years. Many of them do not question the fact that animals have heightened senses. But the question is there evidence that they can do more than just hear, see, or feel better? One of the most controversial and fascinating researchers of this phenomenon is British biologist Rupert Sheldrake. His experiments with dogs that supposedly knew when their owners were coming home caused quite a stir in the scientific community. In one of his most famous studies, a dog named JT, belonging to a woman named Pamela, reacted to her return home regardless of the time, means of transport, or route. Cameras placed in the apartment recorded JT sitting by the door at the exact moment when Pamela was making the decision to return. Attempts have been made to explain this by routine, smell, even the noise of a car. But all of these factors have been ruled out. In the United States, research has been conducted on the spatial orientation of carrier pigeons. Their ability to return to their loft from hundreds of kilometers away is still not fully understood. It is known that they can use the position of the sun, the magnetic field, and low-frequency sounds. But there are also hypotheses about the ability to map space, the mechanism of which is still unknown. Another example is research on the behavior of fish and insects. Some species respond to changes in atmospheric pressure faster than meteorological devices. One project observed the behavior of ants before earthquakes. The insects left their nests and moved erratically before the quakes occurred. Not all scientific communities take these phenomena seriously. Some researchers consider them cases of overinterpretation or confirmation bias, the tendency to notice only those events that confirm previous beliefs. However, even the greatest skeptics admit some observations are difficult to explain. Perhaps the line between science and intuition is thinner than we think, and what seems inexplicable today will become part of knowledge tomorrow. All we need to do is open our minds to new possibilities. Spiritual sixth sense or voice of nature. When we try to understand the extraordinary abilities of animals, we stand at the crossroads of two worlds: scientific analysis and spiritual intuition. On the one hand, biology, chemistry, neurophysiology. On the other, ancient beliefs that animals are connected to an invisible plane of existence that we, humans, no longer feel. Proponents of the scientific approach argue that there is no need to introduce a sixth sense when most reactions can be explained by highly developed senses. Dogs have a much more sensitive sense of smell and hearing. Cats can see better in the dark. Birds can sense changes in magnetic fields. Evolution has equipped them with a toolkit that allows them to survive in a world full of dangers. But what about more than just survival? In the traditions of many indigenous cultures, from South America to Siberia, animals were treated as spiritual guides. Shamans believed that each creature had not only physical properties, but also metaphysical meaning. Owls were a symbol of knowledge and contact with the afterlife, wolves of intuition and loyalty, and cats of the border between worlds. In these beliefs, the sixth sense was not something extraordinary. It was a natural part of life. Some contemporary researchers on the border of science and spirituality suggest that animals can perceive changes in the energy fields of their surroundings. Such a field, according to the theory, can be disrupted by emotions, illness, and even impending death. Animals unencumbered by rational thought can simply feel what is invisible to us. In turn, brain research has shown that some animals have developed areas responsible for spatial orientation and interpretation of external stimuli that humans are not even aware of. An example would be the ability to register ultrasound, changes in air ionization, or microvibrations. Perhaps the answer does not lie on one side. Perhaps it is the combination of heightened biology and deep instinctive sensitivity that allows animals to perceive reality more fully than we do. Maybe it is not a miracle, but an ability that humans have lost in the pursuit of technology and logic. So is the sixth sense just a metaphor, or a reminder that we are part of a larger whole, in which animals can still move with their eyes closed? As we look at history, research, accounts, and intuition, we begin to see a common thread. Animals, regardless of species, have the ability to perceive reality in ways that defy our comprehension. Sometimes they act before something happens. They react to changes that we don't notice. They act as if they know the future, or at least have a quiet foretaste of it. For many people, it is just a coincidence, a sharpened instinct, a reflex. But isn't that how we try to rationalize everything that goes beyond the boundaries of our knowledge? Aren't we closing ourselves off to what is uncomfortable because it doesn't fit into the prevailing models of the world? In ancient legends, animals were often messengers of the gods, symbols of divine power, or guardians of the human soul. And with good reason. Even today, in the age of satellites and supercomputers, it is they who teach us silence, mindfulness, and trust in invisible signs. So maybe we shouldn't ask if they have a sixth sense, but rather, why don't we have one anymore? Perhaps we are looking for the answer in the wrong places. Or maybe the answer is looking at us every day, from a bed under a table, from a tree branch, from a meadow where a herd is peacefully grazing. Because who knows, maybe they are the true guardians of the balance between the visible world and what is hidden. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you want, and see you in the next episode.